Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to another episode of Read With Me. I am your host, Kelly Michelle. On this channel, we focus on reading together separately. And that means that we read the same book, but separate in our own houses, wherever it is that we're reading books. Our goal is to read one book per month. And last month we finished our inaugural book in January, and now we're moving on to our second book this month, February. So we are reading together The Perfect Marriage by Jeneva Rose. And I am excited for us to dive into this fiction book together. So this first episode, we will be covering chapters 1 through 6, and I will be covering about 6 chapters each episode, and I post Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So just a disclaimer, well, first of all, if you have not read this book, then there definitely are going to be spoiler alerts, because as we talk through this book, or as I share this book with you all, we'll be going through the entire story. So I would just encourage you, do not watch an episode unless you are willing to have a spoiler alert, because like I said, I will be talking through the main points of what happened in those chapters during this conversation with you. And so let's dive right into it. The Perfect Marriage. So let me just give you a little bit of background. It's mainly about 2 main characters, and the characters are Sarah Morgan and Adam Morgan, and they are a married couple, and they presently live in DC. The perspective of the book flips back and forth. So the first chapter will be from Sarah's perspective, and then it will flip back and forth between Sarah and also Adam throughout the entire book. It is set in present day. So of course there's like flashbacks of the past, like for example, it talks about how they actually met each other, and that's in the first 6 chapters of the book, and I will get more into that. But it's not a book that necessarily goes for an extended amount of time to the past. It really is set in present day. So that's a little bit of the background as far as how the book is formatted. It is 64 chapters, and we're just gonna dive into the first 6 chapters. And just a reminder, like I was just saying earlier, and I just want to put more emphasis into it, is that I am going to really focus on the main topics, or the main action, or the main events that happen within the 6 chapters. I will try to introduce characters that are relevant to the story. There are a lot of different characters within the story. So I'm just really going to focus on the main events, and then also pose, some different thoughts, reflections, or questions that I had as we move along. So let's get started. So chapter 1, Introduction. As I just mentioned, this book is about a married couple. They're both in their 30s, and Sarah is a successful defense attorney. These are just some characteristics of Sarah. Successful defense attorney. She's a very well put together person. So within the first few chapters, you hear about, her impeccable style. She's very fashionable. She has impeccable style. No hair is out of place. And she is a workaholic. So she really places a lot of value on her work and spending a lot of time on her work. And then finally, I would say one of the characteristics to describe Sarah is she's a very type A personality. And we will see more, what do I want to say, representations of that type A personality as we go along in the book. Now, to describe Adam, he also is in his 30s. He is a struggling writer. So he had one book that really was successful, but after that initial book that was a success, it has been a struggle for him to write his next bestseller. So he's a struggling writer. He also seems to be struggling with his identity. So he has some challenges, as we'll see along as we read throughout the book, of just kind of figuring out who he is. And then finally, I would say the last characteristic that we see is he wants a family. So he is a family-oriented person, and he really wants to have a family of his own. Okay, now that we have discussed a little bit of the characteristics of the two main characters, which are Sarah and Adam, let's dive into the chapters we're going to review today. And so our introduction of Sarah and Adam is in obviously chapter 1, and it's their 10th anniversary. So they are having a discussion about their anniversary, and Adam really wants Sarah to spend time with him during their anniversary, but Sarah has some critical cases at work that she needs to give her attention to. So she has made work a priority over spending time for their anniversary. So I question for you, the audience, if you were in that situation, how would you feel the situation of your spouse choosing work over celebrating your anniversary? How would that make you feel? How would that make you feel? Can you relate to some of the feelings that Adam expressed? Because he has a level of disappointment. It's their 10-year anniversary. He wants to spend time with his wife to celebrate, and she has to work. So that is our introduction in chapter 1. One thing I did want to point out, though, is she didn't forget their anniversary. She gave him a very expensive present. And I wonder if Sarah chooses to give presents and give gifts to be a substitute for her presence, for her not being present and spending time with Adam. So the two of them, because of the level of success that Sarah has had as an attorney, have been able to purchase a lake house that is about an hour outside of DC, and DC is the location of this story. And Adam decides to go ahead and go to the lake house even though Sarah has to work. So this is happening and taking course over a weekend. So as we move along, and just also too, as a note, I'm not going to say, oh, this happened in chapter 1, chapter 2, and so forth. Just know that the things that I am sharing are all within that section of chapters that we're reviewing. So this is all happening in chapters 1 through 6. So Adam goes ahead and makes his way to the lake house, but we find out that Adam is not alone, and his companion is not his wife. It is a waitress from a local diner, and her name, actually synonymous with my name, happens to be Kelly. And so that's when we're introduced to the fact that Adam is having an affair. And we're also introduced to the fact that Kelly is married as well, and she has a husband, and his name is Scott. So both Adam and Kelly are both cheating on their spouses, and we're introduced to that. So as I was sharing with you the characteristics of Adam, I wrote down this question about Adam. Do you think, because he was very assured and had made the decision he's going to the lake house no matter what. Do you think that Adam going to the lake house is a way for him to escape? And when he is escaping, well, one, that's a question. Do you think he's trying to escape? And do you think the reason why he is trying to escape is because he has a disappointing, he's disappointed in his career, and maybe also that he is trying to get away from the successes of his wife? Like, he's living in her shadow. She's the main breadwinner in the house. He is struggling with his career and also possibly his own identity. And that was something that I was thinking about as I was reading these chapters. I was thinking that, Adam is using the lake house as a place of escape. And then I also began to think of, what is the reason why Adam is having an affair? Now, we know one of the reasons, because it's shared within those chapters, is that he feels ignored. He feels ignored by Sarah, that work comes first. He doesn't feel a lot of love in the relationship. He doesn't feel like he's a priority in a relationship. So that might be one of the reasons why he has chosen to step out of his relationship and cheat. But I also was wondering if it could be something deeper. Could it be that Adam is having an affair because of his own personal insecurities and inadequacies, because he is disappointed with how his life has turned out and his successes? He has an affair in order to maybe feel better about himself. Continuing on, we also learn within these chapters their origin story as far as how they met each other. So Sarah and Adam met each other at college. And continuing on with the storyline of what happened in the first 6 chapters, excuse me. While Adam is at the lake house, he is, meeting and spending time with Kelly. Sarah is back in her office, and we're introduced to 2 new characters, and one of them is Sarah's best friend, Matthew, who is a fellow attorney that also went to school with them. They were in law school together. Well, Sarah and Matthew were in law school together. And then we meet Anne, which is Sarah's personal assistant. And we see within the first chapters that Anne is very attentive to Sarah's needs, and that she really highly admires Sarah. So we learn about that. And then to wrap up the first 6 chapters, towards the end of these chapters 5 and 6, Adam has now returned home from his time at the lake house, and he hears a knock at the door. And so the knock at the door is the sheriff's department. And the sheriff's department begins to question Adam about Kelly. And that's how the end of chapter 6 closes. And now we're going to begin to get an understanding of what actually happened. So, as I always, before I end every segment, I first encourage you to read. So I encourage you to take some time today, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, however much time you have, to read. And then also, I want to encourage you to comment. What was your takeaways from the first 6 chapters in this book? Do you agree with me with some of the assessments that I had for both Adam and for Sarah? What do you think is going to happen next? You know, now we know that, at least we know that something has happened to Kelly, because that is why the police have shown up. I should say Kelly at the lake house. The police have shown up on Adam's doorstep. So what do you think happened to Kelly? How do you think Adam is involved with whatever happened with Kelly? It's so much. It's so much. We are just now diving into this book, and I am just in great anticipation to figure out all the puzzle pieces, because as we know, the title of the book, his mistress is dead. So we know she's died, but what's the situation surrounding it? If you have really been enjoying this book club, our virtual book club, reading together separately, I encourage you to like, comment, share, and subscribe. The next time, our next episode, I will be going over chapters 6 through 12. As I end every segment, I want to say thank you so very much for joining me today. And until next time, happy reading.